Kody Brown just expressed the unspoken truth openly, and the online community is completely reacting intensely. In the most recent broadcast of Sister Wives, the guardian of 18 offspring released a revelation so astonishing that the audience had to halt, replay, and question themselves if he genuinely just communicated what they believe he communicated. Advanced warning, he did. And it's more severe than you could conceivably envision. While examining his offspring Aurora's new relationship, Kody determined to provide some unrequested guidance about maintaining things innocent before matrimony. Honorable sufficiently? Correct? Incorrect. Because what emerged from his expression next has become the most examined instance of the complete broadcast period. And sincerely, it might just be the most humiliating admission in Sister Wives Chronicle. Kody acknowledged on recording for the environment to perceive that the only reason he was capable to maintain his appendages off Robyn before they obtained matrimony was because he possessed what he labeled an outlet, and that outlet, his 3 other spouses. Affirmative, you interpreted that accurately. Kody essentially admitted that while he was constructing affectionate sentiments for Robyn, pursuing her, descending completely for her, he was returning to residence to Christine, Janelle, and married to fulfill his physical requirements. The boldness, the disrespect, the absolute absence of personal recognition. Supporters are labeling it humiliating, dehumanizing, and absolutely repulsive. Social platforms detonated within hours of the broadcast transmission, with the audience communicating their astonishment and revulsion at how informally Kody diminished his spouses to nothing more than advantageous outlets for his aspirations. These weren't just women he was matrimonially connected to. These were mothers of his offspring, companions who had dedicated decades of their existences to him, women who merited respect and worthiness. But that's not even the most severe portion, because this wasn't just an error of expression or an inadequately articulated statement. Kody intensified, clarifying in specification how he succeeded to dominate himself around Robyn by essentially utilizing his other matrimonies as a discharge mechanism. The space transformed silent. Aurora resembled mortified. Robyn attempted frantically to moderate things, and the audience at residence, they couldn't accept what they were observing. This broadcast was intended to be about festive customs and Aurora presenting her cowboy romantic partner to the household. It ought to have been pleasant, wholesome, perhaps a small uncomfortable in that characteristic meeting the Guardian's variety of manner. Rather, it converted into a demonstration in self-absorption, with Kody causing everything about himself and Robyn, providing uncomfortable presentations and ultimately disclosing just how insignificant he appreciated the women who positioned by him for years. And here's the circumstance, this is just the commencement. Because what developed in that storage discussion, the unusual presentations, the troubled evaluations, the frantic requirement for focus, it all constructs to that one devastating instance where Kody reveals precisely who he genuinely is. So, secure yourself, because we're about to decompose every painful, humiliating moment of Kody Brown's most recent collapse. Let's reverse to where this catastrophe genuinely commenced. Aurora Brown, 22 years previous, and Kody and Robyn's offspring possesses a romantic partner. His designation is Brody, and he's a comprehensive cowboy, complete with the headwear, the footwear, and apparently in genuine property. Pleasant, correct? A young woman, enthusiastic to present the man she's dating to her guardians. What could conceivably transform incorrect? Everything. Literally everything. The segment initiates with Aurora requesting her guardians to proceed, position in the storage, and simulate they're positioning something distant. Currently, you can perceive the discomfort. This is a two-year-old woman who has to organize a discussion with her own guardians because she understands profoundly that this is going to be troubled. And she was completely correct. Kody and Robyn proceed into the storage, performing along with this unusual arrangement, and Aurora releases the information. She's established with Brody. They're unified. She's content. This ought to be an instance where guardians express pleasure, request a limited inquiries, perhaps communicate some enthusiasm for their offspring. But Kody possessed alternative intentions. Within moments, he caused it transparent that this discussion wasn't going to be about Aurora at all. It was going to be about him, about his relationship with Robyn, about his sentiments, his affection, his requirement to be the focus of focus, even during his offspring's significant instance. Robyn attempted to validate it subsequently, labeling Kody an affectionate individual, declaring he just becomes enthusiastic when he perceives affection and desires to commemorate it. But let's be genuine, that's not what occurred. What occurred was a characteristic exhibition of self-absorbed conduct, where a guardian appropriates their offspring's instance to cause it all about themselves. Every time Brody communicated something pleasant about Aurora, Kody experienced compelled to exceed him, discussing about how he manages Robyn, how affectionate their relationship is, how particular their association is. At one moment after Brody created a considerate response, Kody literally traversed over to Robyn and expressed affection to her as if he required to demonstrate something to this young man who was just attempting to possess a standard discussion. Aurora's expression communicated it all. She resembled troubled, humiliated, disappointed. This was intended to be her instance, her presentation, her opportunity to distribute something significant with her guardians. Rather, she became a surrounding character in the Kody and Robyn program, which, let's be sincere, is a program nobody requested for and nobody desires to observe. But Kody wasn't concluded. Not even proximate. Because after causing the complete discussion about himself, he determined it was period to position on his protective guardian headwear and interrogate unfortunate Brody with inquiries that would cause anyone experience discomfort. And that's when circumstances transformed from uncomfortable to completely insufferable. The audience observing at residence were halting, replaying, examining at each other in incredulity. Even Robyn's expression displayed fractures of concern, like she understood her partner was about to communicate something he shouldn't. And indeed, was she correct? What arrived next would generate discussions, indignation, and thousands of responses labeling out Kody's conduct for what it genuinely was. So Brody, pleasant cowboy Brody, is positioning in this storage, attempting his optimal to create a favorable representation. And Kody, performing the function of protective guardian, requests him a seemingly standard inquiry. Will you safeguard Aurora? Straightforward sufficiently. Brody's response was flawless. He informed Kody that on their very initial date, he provided Aurora a blade. Traditional cowboy action. He confirmed Kody that affirmative, completely, he would safeguard her. But that wasn't satisfactory for Kody. Oh no. Because Kody required to advance it further, required to cause it unusual, required to convert a direct inquiry into something profoundly troubled. Kody examined at this young man and requested, "So you'll safeguard her from yourself?" The bewilderment on Brody's expression was immediate. You could perceive him processing the inquiry, attempting to comprehend what Kody was suggesting. Why would he require to safeguard Aurora? From himself? What variety of inquiry even is that? And that's when it became painfully transparent. Kody wasn't requesting about physical safeguarding at all. He was descending directly into a presentation about innocence, purity, and maintaining appendages to yourself before matrimony. Aurora attempted to redirect, clarifying that Brody was contemplating strategically, discussing about genuine safeguarding, not comprehending the religious implications Kody was distributing around. But Kody continued advancing, continued suggesting, continued causing everyone in that storage desire they were anywhere else. This is where Kody's development and fundamentalist religious civilization arrived flowing out. The concept that young men are predators who can't dominate themselves, the perception that women are possessions to be safeguarded and maintained, the fixation with purity, and the concern that any physical affection before matrimony is some variety of ethical failure. Brody, fortunate, him, was not comprehending what Kody was communicating. And sincerely, that's presumably because Brody is a favorable individual who wasn't developed to contemplate of his romantic partner as someone he requires to safeguard from his own aspirations. He was genuinely bewildered, innocently attempting to comprehend why this man was suggesting he might damage Aurora. But Kody didn't halt there. He continued expressing about safeguarding Aurora, about maintaining things innocent, about causing certain Brody comprehended the regulations. Robyn entered at some moment attempting to moderate over the discomfort, clarifying that this is just how Kody was developed. This is their civilization. This is what they accept. Except, here's the difficulty. Kody's acceptances are saturated in contradiction. Because while he's positioning there presenting to a two-year-old about maintaining his appendages to himself, Kody's own chronicle communicates a very alternative narrative. A narrative that involves expressing affection to Robyn before they were matrimonially connected while he was still connected to 3 other women. A narrative that, according to his own religious standards, causes him responsible of the precise circumstance he's cautioning Brody against. And if you contemplate that's contradictory, just anticipate. Because Kody was about to communicate something so unusual, so disconnected, so incredibly insensitive that it would eclipse everything else in this complete broadcast. Kody's presentation continued, and that's when he released one of the most unusual statements of the complete discussion. He informed Brody, "You're expressing affection to another man's spouse. Don't acquire something that doesn't correspond to you. Let that absorb for a moment." Kody Brown, the man who constructed his complete, mature existence around polygamy. The man who matrimonially connected 4 women. The man who expressed affection to Robyn while still matrimonially connected to Christine, Janelle, and Mary just informed a young man that expressing affection to his romantic partner before matrimony is the identical as expressing affection to another man's spouse. The mental exercises required to create that declaration is genuinely championship level. According to fundamentalist polygamous acceptances, when you express affection to someone before matrimony, you're essentially acquiring closeness that corresponds to their future partner. It's a concept established in purity civilization, where women are perceived as possession that transferred from guardian to partner. And Kody, despite having departed the strict fundamentalist organization he was developed in, distinctly still transports these acceptances profound in his foundation. But here's where it transforms genuinely abundant. Kody and Robyn expressed affection before they were matrimonially connected. This is verified. When they obtained engaged, they distributed affection, and it was managed as this significant, scandalous instance within the household because by their own religious standards, Kody was currently connected to 3 other women. So when he expressed affection to Robyn, he was literally expressing affection to another man's spouse, or in this situation, expressing affection to a woman who corresponded to the collective matrimony he currently possessed. Yet, somehow, Kody advantageously disregards this when he's positioning in the storage, providing Brody the intensive examination. Aurora resembled mortified. Brody resembled bewildered. Robyn attempted to perform it off as cultural distinctions, and the audience at residence were communicating at their displays, indicating the apparent double standard. Kody also created an emphasis of declaring he's more selective with Aurora's romantic partner than he was with his other offspring's companions. Why? Because he's been through separation currently because he's acquired instructions. Because apparently the suffering of misplacing Christine, Janelle, and Mary has caused him more protective of Aurora than he ever was of his other offspring. That declaration alone is incredibly revealing. It proposes that Kody is concerned more about Aurora's security and contentment than he did about his other offsprings. It suggests that his other offspring didn't receive the identical level of examination, the identical level of safeguarding. And understanding what we understand about how Kody managed Christine's offspring, Janelle's offspring, and even Mary's offspring, that declaration appears less like development and more like preference. But anticipate, because previously in the broadcast, Kody declared something completely alternative. He asserted that Robyn was the selective one, that she was the one being cautious about Aurora's romantic partner, while he just desired to be companions with Brody, associate, communicate narratives, understand him informally. So, which is it, Kody? Are you the relaxed guardian who just desires to be associates? Or are you the hyper-vigilant, excessively protective guardian who's acquired from history errors? Because you can't be both. And then it occurred. The instance that would characterize this complete broadcast, the instance that transmitted impact waves through the sister wives' supporter base and possessed social platforms detonating with indignation. Kody, in his unlimited knowledge, determined to distribute precisely how he succeeded to maintain things innocent with Robyn before they obtained matrimonially connected. He declared, and we reference, "I maintain my appendages off of Robyn until we were matrimonially connected. I signify I did possess an outlet. I was still affectionate with my other spouses." There it is. The individual most humiliating, disrespectful, dehumanizing declaration Kody Brown has ever created on recording. And considering his chronicle, that's declaring something. Let's decompose precisely what Kody just acknowledged. He's admitting that while he was pursuing Robyn, descending in affection with Robyn, constructing this magnificent, affectionate association with Robyn, he was returning to residence to Christine, Janelle, and Mary, and utilizing them for physical fulfillment. They weren't companions in those instances. They weren't spouses he appreciated and valued. They were outlets, advantageous bodies to complete his requirements, while he maintained his precious Robyn on an elevation. The suggestions are completely sickening. Kody diminished 3 women, mothers of his offspring, women who had provided him decades of their existences, to nothing more than instruments for his own satisfaction. He acknowledged audibly that he observed closeness with them as a method to a conclusion, a manner to dominate himself around the woman he genuinely desired. And he declared this on national programming in front of his offspring, in front of Robyn, in front of millions of the audience, without an individual portion of embarrassment or personal recognition. The quietness in that storage was overwhelming. Aurora resembled like she desired to vanish into the ground. Robyn's expression fluctuated with something. Was it humiliation, understanding, harm management mode initiating? Brody just positioned there, presumably questioning what variety of household he was becoming involved with. But Kody appeared genuinely satisfied of himself, like he just distributed some profound knowledge about restraint and purity. Like he demonstrated what a favorable ethical man he was for maintaining his appendages off Robyn, completely unconscious to the circumstance that he just revealed himself as someone who observed his spouses as interchangeable objects. The audience immediately advanced to social platforms communicating their terror and revulsion. Responses flooded in, labeling out the misogyny, the objectification, the absolute boldness of creating such a declaration. Individuals indicated that this clarifies so much about why Christine, Janelle, and Mary all eventually departed. Because how do you remain with a man who perceives you as nothing more than an outlet? And here's the circumstance that causes it even more severe. Kody has invested years, literal years, performing the casualty, expressing emotional distress about how his spouse has abandoned him, asserting he doesn't comprehend why they departed, performing like he accomplished everything correct and they just couldn't manage plural matrimony. But this one declaration discloses the reality. They departed because he never genuinely appreciated them. He never perceived them as equivalent companions. He perceived them as substitutes until something superior arrived along. After Kody's revelation declaration released like an explosive in that storage, Robyn attempted to accomplish what Robyn accomplishes: optimal harm management. She entered, attempting to rescue the circumstance, attempting to reconstruct her partner's horrifying declaration into something affectionate and endearing. According to Robyn, Kody is just an affectionate individual at center. He perceives affection and romance, and he desires to commemorate it. He becomes enthusiastic when he observes affection, and he can't assist, but desire to contribute. She presented him as this desperate affectionate who just appreciates affection so much that he has to cause everything about his own relationship. But let's label it what it genuinely is. That's not romance. That's self-absorption. A genuinely affectionate individual would be enthusiastic for their offspring. They'd request thoughtful inquiries about how the relationship commenced, what they appreciate accomplishing unified, what causes this individual particular. They'd concentrate on their offspring's contentment, not their own requirement for confirmation and focus. What Kody accomplished in that storage wasn't affectionate. It was selfish. It was causing his offspring's instance about himself. It was utilizing Aurora's relationship as an excuse to exhibit his association with Robyn and remind everyone in the space, including a bewildered two-year-old cowboy, that he still possessed it. And Robyn's protection of this conduct is almost as concerning as the conduct itself. Because by validating it, by labeling it affectionate rather than labeling it out for what it is, she's facilitating Kody's self-absorbed tendencies. She's providing him authorization to continue causing everything about himself, to continue overwhelming over other individuals' instances, to continue being the focus of focus at all periods. You could perceive it in everyone's expressions. Aurora wasn't expressing pleasure. She wasn't radiating with contentment the manner a young woman ought to be. When presenting her romantic partner to her guardians, she resembled troubled, resigned, like she understood this was how it was going to proceed, like she'd perceived this configuration, her complete existence, and had acquired to just accept it. Brody, fortunate his center, was attempting so intensely to navigate the circumstance. He responded to inquiries respectfully, distributed pleasant narratives about his relationship with Aurora, and accomplished everything a favorable romantic partner ought to accomplish when meeting the guardians. But every time he communicated something considerate or thoughtful, Kody discovered a manner to convert it back to himself and Robyn. Even the modification couldn't conceal the pressure. There were extended halts, uncomfortable observations, instances where you could practically perceive the creators behind the recording device experiencing discomfort. Multiple periods throughout the discussion, you could communicate individuals' desire to declare, "Kody, please halt. Please just halt communicating." But he didn't halt. He continued proceeding, continued presenting, continued evaluating, continued causing it unusual. And Robyn continued attempting to moderate it over, continued creating excuses, continued simulating that this was standard guardian conduct rather than the warning signal demonstration it genuinely was. And while Robyn was occupied supporting Kody's affectionate nature, the remainder of the environment was observing and contemplating about 3 other women. 3 women who invested years experiencing this precise conduct. 3 women who were caused to experience invisible while Kody elevated Robyn above them. 3 women who conclusively possessed sufficient. Envision being Christine, Janelle, or Mary positioning at residence observing this broadcast develop. Envision perceiving your previous partner, the guardian of your offspring, the man you invested decades with, informally acknowledge on national programming that you were nothing more than an outlet for his physical requirements while he cultivated genuine romance with someone else. The betrayal, the humiliation, the confirmation of every painful sentiment they must have experienced during those years. Christine has been the most communicative about her experience in the household. She's composed a publication, provided conversations, and caused it transparent that she experienced underappreciated and disrespected for years. But even she might not have comprehended the comprehensive extent of how Kody observed her until this instance. Perceiving him declare audibly that he utilized her and the other spouses as outlets while maintaining Robyn particular and distinct, that's a level of disrespect that's difficult to position into statements. Janelle, who consistently prided herself on being realistic and rational, who attempted to cause plural matrimony function despite the evident inequality, must be observing this and experiencing confirmed in her determination to depart. Because how do you remain with someone who diminishes you to an instrument? Someone who perceives closeness with you as a manner to control his sentiments for another woman. And Mary, unfortunate Mary, who adhered to the matrimony for so extended, who attempted frantically to repair circumstances to be appreciated, to signify to Kody again. She surrendered her lodging establishment arrangement, reorganized her complete existence, anticipating for portions of focus from a man who distinctly never perceived her as anything more than advantageous. This outlet response clarifies so much about the household interactions we've observed deteriorate over the history-limited broadcast periods. It clarifies why Robyn was consistently managed alternatively. It clarifies why the other spouses experienced like inferior citizens in their own matrimonies. It clarifies the resentment, the damage, the eventual departure of three women who conclusively comprehended they merited superior. Because here's what Kody doesn't appear to comprehend. When you genuinely appreciate someone, when you genuinely appreciate them as a companion, you don't observe closeness with them as an outlet. You don't utilize them as a substitute or a distraction. You don't manage them like they're interchangeable with anyone else. But that's precisely what Kody accomplished. And by acknowledging it so informally, without embarrassment or recognition, he disclosed the fundamental difficulty with his method to plural matrimony. He never perceived his spouses as equivalents. He categorized them. He performed preferences. He provided Robyn the romance, the elevation, the particular management, while Christine, Janelle, and Mary received whatever was departed over. And currently, the environment understands it. Currently, there's no refusing it, no transforming it, no simulating that the household deteriorated because the spouses couldn't manage distributing, or because they were envious, or because they didn't comprehend plural matrimony. The household deteriorated because Kody Brown never genuinely respected the women he matrimonially connected. He utilized them, acquired from them, and when they conclusively possessed sufficient and departed, he presented himself as the casualty. Well, the disguise is off currently, and there's no positioning it back on. But the contradictions didn't halt with the outlet response, because throughout this complete storage discussion, Kody continued alternating between two completely alternative interpretations of himself, and apparently he believed no one would recognize. Initial in the broadcast, Kody created an emphasis of declaring that Robyn was manner more selective than him when it arrived to Aurora's romantic partner. He presented himself as the relaxed guardian, the individual who just desired to associate with Brody, communicate some narratives, perhaps proceed horseback traveling, or position around a campfire. Just two individuals connecting, no tension, no assessment. He was the favorable guardian. Robyn was the protective one. Advance. Forward to the storage discussion, and suddenly Kody's performing a completely alternative melody. Currently, he's asserting that he's more selective with Aurora's romantic partner than he ever was with his other offspring's companions. Why? Because he's been through separation currently, because he's acquired difficult instructions. Because apparently, disappointment has converted him into this hyper-vigilant protector who's going to interrogate every potential pursuer to cause certain they're worthy. So which is it, Kody? Are you the relaxed, companionable guardian who just desires to understand the individual, or are you the strict, critical guardian who's positioning Brody through some variety of worthiness evaluation? Because those are two completely alternative methods, and you can't assert to be both in the identical discussion. What causes this even more infuriating is what the selective response suggests. Kody directly acknowledged that he's being more severe on Aurora's romantic partner than he was on the companions his other offspring transported residents. He's being more protective of Aurora than he was of Christine's offspring, Janelle's offspring, or Mary's offspring. That's not development. That's preference. That's demonstrating once again that Robyn's offspring receive particular management, while the others receive whatever portions of focus Kody experiences, like providing. And here's the significant revelation. Kody attempted to validate this by declaring he's acquired from his separations. But what precisely has he acquired? Because from where we're positioned, it resembles he's acquired completely nothing. He's still causing everything about himself. He's still performing preferences. He's still declaring wildly inappropriate circumstances without any personal recognition. He's still managing individuals like objects to be utilized and discarded when they're no longer advantageous. If anything, the separations ought to have instructed him humility. They ought to have instructed him to attend, to appreciate individuals, to identify his own failures. Rather, he's utilizing them as an excuse to be even more dominating with the offspring he genuinely is concerned about, while completely disregarding the suffering he caused the others. Brody positioned there, acquiring it all in, presumably comprehending that he just advanced into a household interaction that's far more complicated and malfunctional than he ever envisioned. Aurora resembled defeated, like she understood her guardian was going to humiliate her, but anticipated perhaps this period would be alternative. And Robyn just continued attempting to moderate everything over, performing the function of supportive spouse, while her partner unraveled correct in front of everyone. But the genuine inquiry everyone's requesting is, does Kody even perceive himself? Does he attend to the statements emerging from his expression and identify the contradictions? The more significant inquiry hovering over all of this is straightforward. Why does any of this signify? Why ought we be concerned about Kody Brown's most recent humiliating instance when he's provided us so numerous over the years? Because this isn't just about one uncomfortable discussion in a storage. This is about a configuration of conduct that's destroyed a household, damaged countless individuals, and continues to perform out on national programming. This is about a man who refuses to acquire responsibility, refuses to develop, refuses to perceive anyone's viewpoint but his own. And here's where it transforms even more intriguing. Subsequently, in the broadcast period, previews display that Kody and Robyn receive a communication from a woman who's interested in joining their household. That's correct. After everything that's occurred, after 3 spouses have departed, after years of asserting he's concluded with plural matrimony and only desires to be with Robyn, suddenly there's discussion of transporting another woman into the representation. And Kody's the one transporting it up. The identical man who announced he was monogamous currently, the identical man who declared he was concluded with polygamy, the identical man who asserted Robyn was all he required. Suddenly, he's entertaining the concept of contributing another spouse. Why? What's transformed? Or, superior yet, what's the genuine motivation here? Internal sources theorize that Kody's self-perception acquired a massive impact when Christine, Janelle, and Mary departed. His identity was enveloped up in being this patriarch with multiple spouses, this man who was so appealing that women competed for his focus. When that deteriorated, when the spouses selected themselves over him, it collapsed his personal representation. So currently transporting in another spouse isn't about affection or spiritual conviction. It's about demonstrating to himself and to the environment that he still possessed it, that women still desire him, that he's still the reward everyone's competing for. And Robyn? Well, Robyn's in an impossible position. She invested years being the preferred spouse, the particular one, the woman Kody selected above all others. But currently, if another woman initiates the representation, she risks misplacing that condition. She risks becoming just another spouse, no longer elevated, no longer safeguarded from the suffering that Christine, Janelle, and Mary experienced for decades. The contradiction is almost poetic. Robyn could conclude up precisely where the other spouses were, experiencing inferior, experiencing like an outlet, while Kody pursues someone new with all the enthusiasm and focus he once provided her. But here's what causes this complete circumstance so disturbing. Kody hasn't acquired anything. He hasn't developed. He hasn't contemplated on why 3 women departed him. He hasn't examined his conduct, his statements, his management of the individuals. He asserts to appreciate. Rather, he's intensifying, creating more excuses, reproaching everyone but himself. And apparently, he's prepared to transport another woman into this malfunction to duplicate the identical configurations, the identical preference, the identical emotional control that destroyed his household the initial period around. The inquiry isn't whether Kody will transport another spouse into the household. The inquiry is, what woman in her correct perception would willingly register for this catastrophe after observing everything that's performed out on programming? So, where does this depart us? With a man who's completely unraveling on national programming, seemingly unconscious of how severely he's revealing himself with every statement that emerges from his expression. The outlet response will proceed down in Sister Wives Chronicle as one of the most astonishing, insensitive, and revealing instances Kody has ever provided us. And that's declaring something, considering we've observed this man for over a period, causing one questionable determination after another. But what causes this specific instance so significant is that it verifies what numerous the audience have theorized for years. Kody never genuinely appreciated his plural matrimony. He never perceived Christine, Janelle, and Mary as equivalent companions meriting of the identical affection, respect, and romance he distributed on Robyn. They were conveniences. They were outlets. They were there to perform a purpose. And when they ceased performing that purpose, he possessed no utilization for them anymore. And currently, his offspring are observing this. Logan, Madison, Gwendolyn, all of Kody's offspring from his other matrimonies are perceiving their guardian acknowledge on recording that he utilized their mothers, that he didn't appreciate them, that they were never genuinely valued the manner Robyn was. How do you return from that? How do you repair relationships with your offspring after publicly humiliating their mothers in such a devastating manner? The response is, you presumably don't. And assessing by how numerous of Kody's previous offspring have distanced themselves from him, it appears they've currently created their selection. Meanwhile, Aurora is departed navigating her own relationship, presenting her romantic partner to a guardian who caused the complete experience about himself, who provided inappropriate presentations, who evaluated everything to his own matrimony, and who ultimately displayed Brody precisely what variety of man he is. The circumstance that this is only halfway through the broadcast period signifies we're in for even more conflict, more contradictions, more instances where Kody declares something so outrageous that the audience have to halt and replay just to cause certain they perceived accurately. The polygamy discussion that's approaching, the capability new spouse, the inevitable consequences when Robyn comprehends she might not be the preferred anymore. It's all developing and it's going to be disorganized. But at the conclusion of the day, this broadcast wasn't genuinely about Aurora's romantic partner, or festive customs, or any of the surface-level narratives the program attempted to transfer us. This broadcast was about revealing who Kody Brown genuinely is, a self-absorbed individual who can't permit anyone else possess the attention. A man who observes relationships as exchanges, someone so profoundly uncertain that he requires constant confirmation, constant focus, constant evidence that he's aspired and significant. And the most melancholy portion, he doesn't even perceive it. He genuinely accepts he's the casualty in all of this. He genuinely contemplates he accomplished nothing incorrect. He genuinely cannot comprehend why his spouse is departed, why his offspring are distant, why the environment is observing him with a combination of astonishment and revulsion. So here's the genuine inquiry for you. Do you contemplate Kody will ever acquire responsibility for his activities? Will he ever identify the suffering he's caused? Or is he too far departed, too enveloped up in his own story to ever perceive the reality? Submit your considerations below. Approve, register, and remain observant, because the subsequent recording is anticipating and you won't accept what's approaching subsequently.